Women, what seduction technique made you think, "Wow, this actually works"? Story 1. One night I met a girl at a bar. We chatted for a while. She gave me her number and invited me to a much more private, upscale place. When I got there, I found at least 3 other guys who were also trying to hook up with her. Anyway, we kept talking while the others, not very subtly, showed their intentions and crashed and burned. As the night went on, people left and we ended up heading to a room. Out of nowhere, I told her my back and shoulders were tense from the gym and asked if she could give me a massage. She immediately climbed on my back, and after about 5 seconds I turned over, we started kissing, and things escalated from there. Honestly, asking for that massage was the trigger that turned everything hot. Although maybe we actually had real chemistry that night and the other guys were just looking for a quick fling. Story 2. I'd been on 1 or 2 dates with this guy. That day we went to the pool together and then back to my apartment. Technically my dad's. I was still in high school. I wanted to get the chlorine smell off me, so I told him I was going to shower. He made a comment like, "Feel free to surprise me." I said it half joking, thinking it would never work, but 2 minutes later he hopped in with me. That's the story of how I lost my virginity. Story 3. A friend of mine was having drinks with a female friend, who's now his girlfriend. They were sitting on the couch when he suddenly said, "You smell like that girl." To this day, even she doesn't understand how that line worked. Story 4. First day of university. During one of those boring class introductions where you present your partner, I introduced myself to the girl sitting next to me as King Edward III. 2 of them played along, and 7 years later I actually married one of them. Yes, she's now my queen. Story 5. I was at a loud house party trying to talk to a really pretty girl I'd only spoken to a couple of times before. I was getting frustrated because I couldn't hear anything, so I got really close and asked if she'd rather continue the conversation somewhere quieter. She gave me this look, and 1 minute later we were in her room, making out like crazy. Turns out she was a host, and after that, she pretty much stopped caring about hosting duties. Story 6. Approaching guys during the day game is just walking up to a random guy anywhere and holding him hostage for a couple of minutes. It's like asking for directions, but instead you tell him you'd like to get to know him and try to start a conversation. If the vibe is good, you get his number and set up a date. With this tactic, in 1 year I've had more dates than most guys I know have in their entire lives. It's hard at first. You have to get over the fear, the rejections, the weird reactions, but it gets easier and stops bothering you. If you're direct, kind, and cute, you don't come off as creepy. Most guys react positively, no matter what you look like. Looks really don't matter that much. The simple fact of having the guts to approach and then being sweet, smiling a lot, and not giving bad vibes is usually enough to get a date with pretty much any guy. It also gives you a ton of confidence in public and dealing with people. Now I meet new people every week and have new dates roughly every 1 or 2 weeks. Story 7. I'm a guy and my contribution is essential for any man who wants to master the noble art of flirting. Posture is everything. Chest out, shoulders back, and hold your drink at your side instead of in front of your chest. Because if the drink is at your side, your elbow is in a position where someone walking by could easily bump it and make you spill, right? This one's sarcastic. He's making fun of overthinking it. Story 8. One night I was texting a guy who lived an hour from my apartment. Suddenly he wrote, "I wish I was tired. I just can't sleep tonight." Without thinking, I replied, "Well, why don't you come sleep with me?" To my shock, he said yes. An hour later, he was at my door, and what happened next wasn't exactly unexpected. Story 9. Walking home after a really fun first date. She noticed the scars on my hands and asked if they still hurt, then kissed one to make it better. I said yes, pointed to another one higher up, and got another kiss. Finally, I pointed to my lips, and everything just flowed. In hindsight, it was super cheesy and cringe, but it didn't matter. We connected completely. It felt like a scene from an Indiana Jones movie, except my hands have way more scars. Story 10. A friend was chatting with a girl who said she wanted to be an actress. Turns out he had studied performing arts too, so he stood up and suggested they act out a dramatic scene together. She agreed. They started role-playing a couple having a heated argument in a restaurant, and 2 minutes later, still in character, they were making out. Probably the most impressive and committed pick-up attempt I've ever witnessed. Story 11. Once I brought a girl to my room saying the clock in my room projects the time onto the ceiling. She lay down on my bed, looked up and said, "I don't see anything." That's when Jonas, master seducer, went into action. "Oh, that's normal. I have to turn off the lights first." And right after I turned them off, I said, "Well, if the clock impressed you, wait till you see what else I've got." Story 12. I was sitting next to a girl under a blanket in the living room with other people around. Somehow I got the courage to just start touching her boobs. I'd never met her before, but she liked it, and a little later we ended up in bed. Starting to grope a woman out of nowhere is a huge risk, though. Story 13. I was flirting with a married woman at a bar. She went to the bathroom, and her friend told me to follow her. Thinking it would be fun, I did. Basically, the moment I walked in, she stuck her hand down my pants and things got wild. Not only was she married, but we were in a disgusting bathroom with another girl peeing right next to us. I got even more drunk just to forget the memory as fast as possible, and then hooked up with her again later. I felt pretty gross about it. Story 14. Early in college, I brought a girl to my dorm to watch a movie. I wanted to make a move but had no idea how to do it smoothly, so like a total rock star, I just threw my arm around her on the couch. She got nervous and said she wasn't looking for a boyfriend or anything. I said that was fine and, super awkwardly, asked if she at least wanted to have some fun with me. To my surprise, she said yes. Good times. Story 15. The week before, I'd had my first date with an amazing girl. On Saturday night, we were both working on a group project. It was freezing, so I drove her back to her dorm, but she'd forgotten her keys and it was late. She was worried about where she'd sleep, and I said, "My bed is really big." Unexpectedly, she accepted without hesitation. We spent the night cuddling, talking, and dry humping until about 3:30 a.m. 9 months later. We couldn't be happier together. And no, she's not pregnant. Rubbing doesn't cause pregnancy. Story 16. I met a girl, and that same night, between laughs, she suggested we go explore a maze of pipes behind the pool hall. It didn't work right then, but I'd given her my number, and surprisingly, she called me a week later. That led to a couple of years full of really fun hookups. The proposal came after I'd already been making out with one of her friends, and I also almost hooked up with the other friend in the parking lot. She was so worked up. Story 17. I got a girl's number and called her the same day to ask her out for drinks. She said she had to pick up a friend at the airport early the next morning. I told her I lived much closer to the airport than she did, and that I had an alarm clock. 2 hours later, we were together. Still shocks me that it worked. Story 18. I was at a club, pretty drunk, dancing with a girl for several songs. The alcohol was flowing, so I didn't even realize we didn't speak the same language. We kissed a bit on the dance floor, nothing crazy. When the party was ending, bars closed at 3 a.m. by law, I got brave and asked, "Do you have somewhere to stay tonight?" She thought for a second and said, "Ryushishubachikawawa." I still have no idea what that meant, but I took her home anyway and we've been dating ever since. Or at least I think we are. Story 19. About 3 years ago, I was at a house party. There was this incredibly hot Puerto Rican girl, amazing skin, curly hair, spectacular boobs. I told my friend, the host, that his friend was gorgeous. During the party, we kept crossing paths, exchanging quick glances, and sometimes she'd brush against me softly. This went on for about 2 hours, and I still couldn't find the words to talk to her. Later, some of us went out to the back porch to smoke and drink in the fresh air. It was dark, relaxed, and she ended up right next to me. So I slowly slid my arm around her waist and pulled her closer. Eventually, everyone else went back inside, and it was just us two. We stood there in silence while I gently caressed her body. What started as subtle touching turned into a passionate kiss, and before I knew it, she was undoing my pants. Almost without saying a single word, I had one of the best experiences of my life. I surprised myself that night. Story 20. One day I came home and found my roommate, who sold drugs, getting a blowjob from an even hotter woman. She was a regular customer who bought a lot from him. Without missing a beat, he opened a bottle of wine. After chatting a bit, she started telling me everything she'd do to me if I paid her. Since I'm not really into paying, I offered her all of that for free. She thought about it for a second and ended up staying the night. We kind of dated for about 4 months after that. I had to end it because she was a little crazy, but it was fun. Also worth mentioning, at the time I was a broke 30-something with a beer belly and zero money, so my options were limited. Story 21. Listening attentively to a woman is basically pure pleasure for her. I've had completely unexpected hookups just because I genuinely listened to what she was saying. Girls I wasn't even hitting on have remembered me or reached out weeks later after just one conversation. 2 conclusions. 1. Clearly almost no one, especially adult men, actually listens to women. A stranger giving them full attention must feel like love at first sight. 2. Even knowing this, it's really hard to do because modern life is full of distractions and most everyday conversations are so boring it's tough to stay focused. For women, having someone treat their words as important is so rare that it becomes seduction in itself. Story 22. I met 2 girls at a hostel in New Zealand and we went out drinking. After a few drinks, I jokingly confessed that I was terrible in bed and even told some funny stories to prove it. They were dying laughing, went to the bathroom together, and only one came back. The second she got back, she kissed me. A little while later, we ended up in her room. Interesting night, to say the least. At one point she asked, "Are you gay?" I said no. She replied, "Prove it." And yeah, I had to prove it. The next day I could barely walk normally. Story 23. A new girl started at work. Not even 20 minutes later, one of the guys went to hit on her. She was talking nonstop and suddenly mentioned her birthday was in a few days. The guy, full confidence, said, "I know." In my head I was screaming, "No you don't, Jack. You're meeting her for the first time." But he doubled down, said he had an amazing memory, winked, and implied that wasn't the only amazing thing about him. She got closer, started touching his chest and arms, even lifted his shirt. I was seriously wondering if I'd forgotten to take my meds, because this was not normal. I was 100% sure they'd never met before that shift. Story 24. A guy I knew once picked up a girl by telling her he was so bad in bed that she had to see it for herself. She actually agreed, slept with him, and afterward confirmed, yes, he really was terrible. Funny thing, I met this guy because he was a Sudoku enthusiast, so you can imagine the level we're talking about.